Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
A lot of people tell me that the reason why Mr. Modi will continue to win is because the Congress party has actually decided to abdicate and abandon its responsibility.
My question is, who's the challenger to Mr. Gandhi in the Congress? There are these G23, not one of them has come forward and saying that whenever elections are held, you remember in June, CWC met and they deferred it for 6 months because of COVID, December is coming. Let there be a public declarations. One person can come forward and saying, I'm going to contest that.
I'm with Sanjay Jha, a former congressman. Well, he's a suspended congressman, left the Congress party some months ago, knows that party very well. And Rashid Kidwai, a journalist who has written several books on the Congress party, also knows the grand old party very well. So, gentlemen, welcome to the Print Debates.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting us, Jyoti.
So, Sanjay, can I ask you to go first? The chaos in the Congress party and as it's being manifested in Punjab and Chattisgarh, what do you make of it?
Well, Jyoti, it's like a death wish for the Congress party. I mean, there is no rational explanation as to why a party which has been in opposition has been literally brutalized by the BJP since 2014. In fact, a little earlier in the assembly polls. Can a party take so long in a democracy to resurrect itself? And the answer is no. But I'll give you one simple example to demonstrate as to why the Congress is really losing. The BJP has won 2 Lok Sabha elections, and it has the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, hugely popular, largely seen as very charismatic. It has Amit Shah, whom people call as a Chanakya. And it has a president, no matter what powers he has, but JP Nadda is also doing his job. In the Congress party, which is supposed to be a party which you rightly described as the grand old party, which has run this country for 55 years, has won 10 of the last 17 Lok Sabha elections. Why is Chhattisgarh in doldrums? Because you are seeing a public spectacle of the kind of skirmish or the pandemonium or the chaos that is out there for the public to see. And why are you ignoring that Rajasthan has been an extremely troubled state as well? We almost lost it last year. And why are you ignoring that Madhya Pradesh was given in a silver platter, nicely packaged with a ribbon round it to the BJP, and Mr. Chauhan was back? And don't forget Karnataka, that went right under the nose of the party because we were still undecided whether Rahul Gandhi is going to be the president or not. So it all links back to the one singular factor, and that's my answer to you. The reason why the regional satraps are now assuming a very aggressive posture is because they tell themselves at the helm, the party is currently in chaos. There is no leader. Rahul Gandhi is the de facto president, refuses to take over. He resigned, said, I will never come back. No, Gandhi will come back, but continues to be in charge. So the reason why the Congress is absolutely in what I would call in a process of disintegration and degeneration is because everyone in the party today knows that hopelessness is the only thing they can believe is going to happen in the future, and therefore each one for themselves. So Navjot Singh Sidhu is publicly attacking the captain who won you the 2017 elections. And now in Chhattisgarh, you have this ridiculous parade where there are 2 people talking about saying, listen, I need to be chief minister for half the term and you for the half term. So now let's talk business.
Right. Rashid, how do you see, why is the Congress party in Chhattisgarh and in Punjab in such deep trouble? Like Sanjay said, Amrinder Singh is being constantly attacked by Navjot Sidhu, the party president in the state. In Chhattisgarh, again, we have this unseemly quarrel between Chief Minister Mr. Bhupesh Baghel and Singh Deo, each of them saying that there is now a rotational chief ministership. What do you make of all this?
I think, Jyoti, this present-day Congress leadership is behaving a bit like Yahya Khan. See, when the fight was going on in the Eastern Front, he opened the Western Front. And that is what exactly Rahul Gandhi has done. When there was some kind of firefighting was going on in Rajasthan and in Punjab for reasons which were beyond Gandhi's, they suddenly, started this kind of some kind of toppling drama that is unfolding in Chhattisgarh. So I think this is prima facie, this is uncalled for. See, the authority of Congress High Command, that famed High Command, is greatly diminished simply because they are not in power. The Gandhis are desperate to win, not for themselves, but to get win confidence of likes of Mr. Sanjay Jha and rest of them. And they're not winning. Exactly same thing Mr. Ashok Gehlot has also been doing. So there is an utter disregard for party managers. They want to do business with Gandhis and strike deal. Gandhis are not in a position to deliver, and they basically don't want to expose themselves that they are incapable of doing things, delivering those promises. This is a root cause of problem. So there is whole thing is out of sheer desperation. What I'm saying is electoral success defines everything. So political loyalty is highly transactional. Devkan Barwa, who said India is Indra, Indra is India, what moment Indra lost, he deposed before Shah Commission of Inquiry. This is a Congress character.
Now, in that case, Sanjay Jha, why is it that it seems, at least for the outsider, that the Gandhis still control the party? Why is it that they're not able to dislodge the Gandhis?
Well, I've been part of a lot of these dinners and these political confabulations that have happened in small groups of G23. See, the bottom line is that if today there was an election in the Congress party, and even if Rahul Gandhi has been able to lead the party into no real electoral triumph at all, barring a few states here and there, again, where the credit largely will go to the leaders who led the states, right up front. Don't forget that Mr. Hooda was not the first choice of the Congress leadership. Neither, by the way, was Captain Amrinder Singh. One of the points, Jyoti, that we must remember that in 2017, when the Congress was losing left, right, and center all the elections after 2014, this was one of the few states which, despite headwinds that Captain faced, he won it because we were routed in the same day in Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand, right? So I do believe that, the political brand of the man is strong, but the Congress is humiliating him. I think the simple story here is that if today the elections were held, and even if there was a good candidate like a Sachin Pilot, or you put anybody for that matter, if Rahul Gandhi were to contest it, he will sweep it down. The simple reason is the Congress party, I think, at its core, organically, has begun to now become so much, shall we say, a Gandhi fiefdom that large majority of even well-intentioned people seem to have virtually given up. I do believe that Rahul Gandhi himself knows that there are alternatives. But he's also got a lot of people telling him that don't move because if somebody else takes over, that person will not have your brand name of the Gandhis, and therefore the Congress party will perhaps become an even bigger disaster. But this is a call that Rahul Gandhi needs to make. I get a lot of people who come and tell me, Jyoti, and I'm being very blunt on your show by telling you that they tell me that can't Rahul Gandhi see the writing on the wall that, India has probably not accepted his political style, or definitely not the brand of politics that he articulates, or at least him personally. Right. Now, the question is, they tell me that, listen, I understand it. Your media seems to understand it. Jyoti Malhotra and even reluctantly Rashid Kidwai understands it. And maybe the voters are giving you a message. Why doesn't Rahul Gandhi get the message? Now, that's a question I can't answer because I'm not Rahul Gandhi.
Okay, Rashid, let's take the states one by one. Let's look at Punjab. I mean, Amrinder Singh seems to have had good control over the state. He won it hands down last time around. This time, because of the BJP and the Akali Dal split, it seemed as if the advantage would accrue to the Congress party, since you have had a tie-up between the Akalis and the BSP. And now it seems as if the Aam Aadmi party is also rising in Punjab. And then I also hear that the farmers' movement, and you know that the farmers are on the outskirts of Delhi, they're back again. They've been holding their dharnas. It's not as high profile as it was late last year, but it seems as if that the farmers also have a voice in the political situation in Punjab. So how do you explain what's going on there?
I think, Jyoti, for a change, Congress so far had played its cards very well in Punjab. They made an assessment, a kind of professional assessment that under Captain Amrinder Singh, because of anti-incumbency, because of age factor, he alone would not suffice. They're not winning. So they brought in Sidhu, who had taken this stand on Kartarpur Sahib. Sidhu is an orator. He has a relatively clean image. All these factors work. So they brought him as a team, and perhaps after the election, the Congress was contemplating some kind of what BJP did in Assam, a kind of change of chief minister. And this was working as a script, but lot of people are working against it. The Aam Aadmi party does not have a face. Akalis continue to be discredited. BSP may have, seemingly vote bank and all, but they've never shown in terms of, it's not translated into a performance. The real problem is Congress's crisis of confidence. People like leaders like Mr. Sanjay Jha, with due respect, do not trust the Gandhis or the central leadership. They're not even looking at a small thing called the Congress party constitution. Interim president is supposed to have 1 year. 2 years have passed, Sonia Gandhi continues to be there. Why is there nobody challenging that in a constitutional term? You need just 10%, 15% signatures to throw
Why
a
do you
legitimate
think?
challenge.
Why do you think, Rashid? Why is nobody challenging?
Sanjay Jha is here, he can answer it.
No, I'm asking you. Why do you think?
Because I think this is a politics of convenience. Again, to give an example of Pakistan, this is the doctrine of necessity that is working in Indian National Congress. Nobody has a principle, the kind of principles Arjun Singh had, the kind of principles VP Singh had, the kind of principles Bahuguna and Jagjivan Ram had every time the Congress faced its internal crisis. Here, nobody wants to go out and fight it out or challenge internally. They just want post and position, CWC post, Rajya Sabha, some committee, I've seen, I don't want to give example, Mr. Jha knows all this. This is what is happening. So nobody has courage of conviction. Courage of conviction is in short supply in the Indian National Congress.
Mr. Jha, those are accusations, that seem to strike at the root of what's happening in your party.
Well, Rashid, I have to give him full credit. He's somebody who's always had a very deep insight into Congress politics amongst the other areas that he specializes in. And I give him full credit for what he said. I have been, as you notice, been very bullish on change and reform in the Congress. But I have got to admit it, and I'm going to tell it again on your show because both of you are, I think wonderful, people whom I deeply respect. I'm seeing the Congress party at this point of time gradually whittle down. The initial euphoria or the energy or the drive that one saw last year is clearly dwindled. There's no doubt about it. And he has a point.
Why?
The Congress has a constitution and there is a case for legally challenging in court if one believes that, this is not the right process that the party should be following. But let me tell you who's going to bell the cat. I mean, this is where I find that, at the end of the day, yes, there are some people, I'm not going to take their names, who are extremely disturbed and, find it very disconcerting to see the Congress collapse the way we are doing, especially because they believe with the BJP's disastrous performance, the Congress actually has an opportunity. This is why it's becoming a Greek tragedy. But Jyoti, in short, he has a point, Rashid, that if people within the Congress party do want to take this battle head on and, let, as they say, throw the whole kitchen sink at the leadership, yeah, they legally have a case. But end of day, even that is something that many are not confident whether they'll get 10% of the support, which is why I said at the very beginning, the Congress party is now literally surrendered itself as becoming just one of the little, shall we say, sub-brands defined largely by a Gandhi family name.
So this G23 or the so-called group of 23 leaders that wrote this high-profile letter, it's almost a year, Rashid, since this so-called letter was written. Of course, after that, very little has happened. We saw just a few days ago, Sonia Gandhi calling online a meeting of the opposition leaders where some of senior opposition leaders like Sharad Pawar also attended. But what Sanjay Jha is saying is that if a leader stands for elections, he's not even going to get that 10% of the vote. So basically, the Gandhis are here to stay.
Yes, I think Gandhis are a bundle of contradiction if you look at it. There is Rahul Gandhi who says he doesn't want to be president. At the same time, he wants to act as a kind of arbitrator, as someone who would decide a high command in matters of Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, etc. I think Mr. Kapil Sibal, Mr. Vivek Tankha, who are many others, or Mr. Manish Tiwari, all those legal eagles that Mr. Sanjay Jha was reluctant to name them, I think they have a case. They need some kind of courage. And Jyoti, me, you and Mr. Jha know how judiciary or the election commission would behave if there is a structured petition come from within the Congress challenging the Gandhis or challenging the Congress. What happens, as we have seen in the past, the symbol gets frozen, they get a warning, they get de-recognized. These are all very deep and disturbing things that would hurt the Congress and its sympathizers. But there's no attempt, nobody writes even a letter like what we are seeing, this rotational change, the stock of it. Not one person all over India has gone public questioning it. This is something I look at it very brazen, because I can imagine Mr. Rahul Gandhi acting as per his whims and fancies, but there's nobody who would even have a moral courage to say what you're doing is wrong.
No, but explain to me, okay, let me play devil's advocate. In Kashmir, Rashid, if you remember in the 2000s, there was an agreement between Ghulam Nabi Azad of the Congress Party and Mufti Muhammad Saeed of the PTB at the time, where they were going to divide the 6 years in power, 3 years to each party. So what's wrong if Singh Deo and Bhupesh Baghel, if they decide the chief ministership between
You see,
themselves?
now it's my turn to compliment my good friend Mr. Sanjay Jha. In a political party, you need to be transparent. ये कोई हालाजी का घर नहीं होता. It's not a private deal, private treaty. If there was such an arrangement, why was it not made public? Why was not it made public 6 months ago? Why not it was public when Rahul Gandhi resigned as Congress president on May 25th, 2019, and tell her mother in a public manner who became interim president, look, this is what I had, I had worked out. Now, who is he? What is his locus standi? He is just a vanguard MP. So I'm saying there is an utter lack of transparency and fairness. Ultimately, chief minister is elected by the MLAs. So you need to have even this kind of facade of some kind of head count, which is not taking place.
So Sanjay Jha, the regional satraps, let's talk about Chhattisgarh and this rotational chief ministership, or at least the so-called sort of division of power, if you like, between Singh Deo and Bhupesh Baghel. Now, what's happening to it now? How did the story come up suddenly? And do you think one of them is going to relent? And what is Mr. Rahul Gandhi going to do in this case?
Well, Jyoti, I'm going to share with you again. These are all internal arrangements that have actually occurred in the past through assurances given to them. It's not that Mr. Dev has suddenly woken up and decided that he needs to be in the chief minister's bungalow. He was, I'm telling you this, probably given this assurance. This is the reason why Rajasthan erupted. Because I'm telling you again with 100% confidence, Sachin Pilot was assured of a certain role in Rajasthan that was denied to him, which is why he went and took his rebel MLAs to Haryana. I'll tell you something. I mean, this is the reason why the Congress party's leadership today is not being trusted. And that is something that I say so here based on a lot of my personal conversations with people. I'll tell you what, if Rashid, you and I are a team, and tomorrow, you find that I'm like some kind of a chameleon, or I'm like a dodgy character who assures you of one thing and backs out tomorrow, you will never choose me as your captain.
Rahul
So I
Gandhi
think what
have assured Mr. Singh Deo that he could be chief minister for 2.5 years?
I'm not saying Rahul Gandhi directly himself, but there is the role of the Congress leadership. Otherwise, Mr. Dev would not be bringing this out in the public domain. I'm also telling you this, that's a reason why Rajasthan has been on the boil and will continue to be so. But I have been hearing, and I'm not going to tell you again what my sources are, that if Mr. Pilot is not given that opportunity to head the state by the middle of next year, trust me, there is going to be a lot of crap hitting the ceiling. And the other state that probably is extremely dicey for the Congress today, literally at the precipice, where the Congress is skating on thin ice, has not yet come out publicly, is Haryana.
Mm-hmm. So, Rashid, the old question, if all this is going on, if every state is revolting, or at least every state the Congress party runs is revolting, there's deep unhappiness inside the party. Why is it, jaise hum kehte hain Hindi mein, ek dhakka aur do. What is it about the Gandhis that people are so scared of? Abhi bhi agar aap Kapil Sibal se puchiye, he had a well-attended dinner a couple of weeks ago at which Sanjay Jha was also present. He's been speaking up, but he keeps saying, nay, Rahul Gandhi is fine, Sonia Gandhi is fine. I think, what is it about congressmen that they are not able to confront this publicly?
Jyoti, because congressman, average congressperson knows, and people like Kapil Sibal know it very well, that Gandhis are not contenders. They are not power wielders. They are trustees of power. As in when, suppose in 2024 or so, opportunity arises, Mr. Rahul Gandhi or Sonia Gandhi would not be holding any formal office. It will be like some Mr. Kapil Sibal, Mr. Prithviraj Chauhan, Mr. Manish Tiwari, Mr. Shashi Tharoor, who would get into union cabinet and council of ministers. So that kind of thing is there. You see, no other political party has this kind of arrangement. You can make fun of them, power without responsibility, but that is something that has given a lot of confidence. Ye to nahi banenge. So who is it? It's going to be me. So that is that kind of that belief is there that may not pronounce it. Secondly, Jyoti, I just for the benefit of your viewers, I just want to explain. Normally, the rotational arrangement is there between two political parties. Like you were saying about PDP and Congress, NC and Congress, or SP, BSP in Uttar Pradesh, or JDS and Congress, or JDS and BJP in Karnataka. So several models are there. There is no, I think, no precedence that I can think of. Both of you know, Indian politics very well. You can correct me if I'm wrong. There is no precedence where, within a political party, there was this kind of arrangement was there कि आप 2.5 साल के लिए बन जाओ, आप 2.5 साल के लिए बन जाओ, and that too it was not spelled out. So I think this just tells very bad optics. Rahul Gandhi, among other things, is very aloof and very indifferent. He thinks that he has got no regard for public opinion, media, optics. He just thinks that just because he's making right noises on COVID-19, on Rafale, or on Pegasus, etc., he's fine. See, politics, you need to have a holistic personality. That is lacking.
So Sanjay Ji, do you think that you could, at least some of the blame could be apportioned, or some of his advisors, some of Rahul's advisors, perhaps you could lay the blame at their door? That
Jyoti,
badly.
Jyoti, let me tell you, the buck stops at the top, and there's a reason behind that. If you are the boss and Rashid and I are giving you terrible advice and you are buying into it, it's your decision, right? I mean, if he and I are giving you with our best intentions, if the advice we are giving you is leading to failures or disasters at your end, you need to correct your own course. And honestly, there is enough material, enough experience, enough failures to teach us a lesson. You see, people are not disappointed. I know a lot of people. I've also, we are not like born yesterday. I do understand that the 2019 Lok Sabha election was lost, not because of any other reason. The hyper-nationalism that happened after the Balakot and the Pulwama attacks. And Mr. Modi wrote that and trashed the whole unemployment and Rafale issues. Fair enough. There's nothing wrong in losing. What is distressing Congress supporters today, Jyoti, and even Rashid, I hope will agree with me. There is no fight back. There is no hunger. There is no passion at all. And I think that is demoralizing everybody across the length and breadth of India. While the leaders in Delhi have their Z or SPG security and live in fancy bungalows. I mean, this is not right.
So it seems to me that the Congress party is the biggest asset of the BJP today. Sanjay Jha?
Team B, I can tell you something. We used to call AAP the Team B of this. Today, a lot of people tell me that the reason why Mr. Modi will continue to win is because the Congress party has actually decided to abdicate and abandon its responsibility. It's a terrible comment on the party that has had Mahatma Gandhi, Pandit Nehru, Sardar Patel. And that's one of the reasons why I continue to fight for this party. But I can tell you it's a tragedy of monumental proportions.
Rashid, is that overstating it, that the Congress party is the Team B of the BJP?
No, I think that's grossly unfair, because I think Congress knows what it stands for. I think it's just somewhere they have lost their kind of self-belief and self-confidence.
It's not able to transport the self-belief or self-confidence to the rest of the people.
Precisely, because they want to win. See, they just want to win and win at any cost, and that desperation, it didn't happen in Kerala, it didn't happen in Assam, so they want it to happen in Punjab by any cost, by any permutation and combination, somehow in Uttarakhand. That desperation is actually making things very difficult. Congressmen are not talking about, they're not talking among themselves.
Rashid, 1 second. The point is, if you're saying that they're desperate to win, but Sanjay seems to think that there is no hunger to win. So isn't that contradictory in terms?
No. I mean, he's saying in a different context, but I'm saying that there is no hunger in the workers. If there are 1,000 people who matter in the Congress, at the, let's say district Congress committees, if they, write a letter or they come and meet Rahul Gandhi or Sonia Gandhi and force this issue that we want, you look at most issues of the day, Congress does not have a stand. And that's a major problem. They are ideological. I mean, other than secularism, can you think of anything where the Congress ideology, stands out?
So, Sanjay, the point is that if you don't have a hunger to win, then why are you in politics? I mean, this is not a tea party, right? Surely, you are in politics because you want to make a difference, you want change, you want to, your ideas or your ideals, you want to influence in your party and in the country. But
Right.
if that's missing, then why not just go home?
A primal question there, Jyoti. We live on hope, right? And I started that whole process of going public by actually writing constructive suggestions for a Congress comeback. I got suspended, but I'm hung in there. I'm not joining any party. I've said it in the past. I'm going to say so on your channel today. I'll remain a congressman because I'm loyal to its ideology. The problem remains, I believe, that a week is a long time in politics. So, yes, things can change. Things can be dramatically different if you play our cards well. I still believe that if the Congress party literally gets its act together even today, on COVID alone, you can checkmate this government. I honestly am convinced that Mr. Modi can be defeated in 2024, which is why you can see the anger and angst in somebody like me.
Without Rahul Gandhi, though.
I believe that Rahul Gandhi is a good man who unfortunately has lost his political brand. So, what is wrong if he takes a back seat and allows a new leadership to emerge? It doesn't have to be one, it can be a couple of good people. Let them take charge, and you can still be a star campaigner. Let the Congress party win, and then you can decide who gets what of the spoils. But to right now insist on holding on to the chair is damaging the prospect of a party which, ideally speaking, should have by now been in pole position for 2024. Instead, people are saying, who is the challenger to Mr. Modi? Now, that to me is a joke.
So, looking forward, Rashid. Yeah, go ahead, Rashid.
No, my question is, who's the challenger to Mr. Gandhi in the Congress? There are these G23, not one of them has come forward and saying that whenever elections are held, you remember in June, CWC met and they deferred it for 6 months because of COVID, December is coming. Let there be a public declarations. One person can come forward and saying, I'm going to contest. That person may lose. I know the kind of electoral college that exists in the Congress, but at least it will force election. Nobody is doing that. This is my complaint. My complaint is not with the Gandhis. I think they're very happy because they have power without responsibility. Everybody is looking up to them. They will decide who will get into the cabinet or not. If there is any alternative government, they get to appoint chief minister and replace them. I think, see, the congressmen must, wake up, smell coffee and demand their share. If they are real stakeholders, if they are true Congress people, rather than hankering for a CWC post or for a Rajya Sabha, which in any case they don't get. Nobody, Jyoti, have you come across, instance where a serious Congress leader has written a letter to that, except that 15th August 2020 letter? After there was no follow-up.
That's a fair point, Sanjay. Why is nobody challenging the Gandhis openly?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, have you seen the way this entire farcical procedure has been played out? There were supposed to be elections within 6 months after that famous meeting. It's been postponed twice over. Now you have December coming up, and suddenly somebody will come up and say that postpone it till after the Uttar Pradesh elections. I mean, how can a part?
But I think you guys are afraid of the Gandhis, if I may say so.
Well, I said so very honestly on your show at the very beginning. I'm seeing the enthusiasm and the energy dissipating, and there is absolutely no denying that the Gandhis have a stranglehold on the party. And today, there are very few people who are willing to stand up and say, you know what, this is the way forward. If this is plan A doesn't work, this is plan B. Now, I have been writing weekly articles. I have been going on television and in your show and speaking up because I believe this party deserves better. Mr. Modi should have been having sleepless nights because of the Congress party. On the other hand, it's we who are burning our own house down. There can be nothing more absurd than this, honestly.
I think, Jyoti, you're running out of time, but I think the congressmen are happy to be unhappy.
Well, last questions then, Rashid. Going forward, how do you look at what's happening in Punjab and Chattisgarh? And of course, as Sanjay says, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, where people were handed the BJP was handed the party or the government, it tied up in
I'm not an astrologer, but I think what Gandhis are hoping that they will earn some kind of reprieve if they win Punjab and Uttarakhand. They think they're very confident that these two states are there. They will win. and that will establish the supremacy of Rahul Gandhi, and somehow Sonia Gandhi will bring back Rahul as 87th president of AICC. That is their script.
But neither of you have talked about UP. Elections are coming up in the next few months in Uttar Pradesh. The big prize of them all. Sanjay?
Well, I'm personally not very optimistic at all. I believe it's going to be a BJP versus Akhilesh Yadav race. I do believe that Priyanka Gandhi had the right intentions when she started. But, given the fact that at the top itself, the Congress looks like such a confused entity in a perpetual conundrum, the message down the rank doesn't motivate your cadres. Just give you one example, Jyoti. I remember when I was in Raebareli around 2 years ago, just before the pandemic happened, a lot of Congress workers met me there. And they said, do you realize कि हमारी हौसला अफजाई के लिए हमें इतना हमारा जज्बा हमारा जुनून कहाँ जाएगा? हम 30 साल से इस राज्य में हम कभी भी जीते भी नहीं हैं, और आज एक समय हर नुक्कड़ हर गांव में एक कांग्रेस का कार्यकर्ता हुआ करता था, आज कहाँ है? और हमारे मनोबल पर हम जो कोशिश कर सकते हैं कर रहे हैं. So this is the state of the Congress party. I think the tragedy, Jyoti, is we spend a lot of time talking about the leadership. I get angry because I feel the Congress worker who works daily doesn't even have time for his family because he does some event or he's trying to promote something. We are being so unfair to him. And that, I think, is the biggest moral failure of the Congress leadership today.
Rashid, you would agree with that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think, but UP story is something that is like a Bengal story. Congress will be very happy if the BJP is defeated. That will be the opposition victory. That is why Sonia Gandhi's, I'll tell you,
But you have to work for that, right?
No, but work for it will be counterproductive. So this is very complicated. If Congress had won, some 20, 30 seats in Bengal, perhaps, Mamata would have been, out of power in that sense. So I think politicians are far more street smart. I think Sonia Gandhi is consciously saying our target is 2024 when she meets opposition leaders. They're not talking about assembly elections because the assembly elections, obviously political parties have their own, face and their own strength and weakness. So those kind of state politics is something very different. The Congress has identified all the states where it matters and it's trying to put some effort. Where it is not important, it would want the anti-BJP political party to win. That is very much clear. I think there is no doubt about it.
Sanjay?
Jyoti, one point here I disagree with Rashid Bhai. You see, in any election, you can decide to take a back seat and let your friendly ally win. But remember, once you go below a certain minimum threshold level, you virtually face obliteration. So if the Congress party chose, for example, if I go by what Rashid Bhai says, chose to actually lose in West Bengal to the extent that you win 0 seats when last time you were the leader of the opposition with 45 seats in assembly, it basically means you're wiped out for a long, long time to come. If you don't have that certain minimum base, it basically means that your game there is over.
So Rashid, are you saying that the Congress is choosing to lose in Uttar Pradesh or it doesn't really care?
Well, before Gandhis came in picture, the Congress has been out of power. I mean, any credible alternative in Bengal, in Uttar Pradesh, in Bihar and in Tamil Nadu, because they always depended on one or two, that Alaiya, the DMK or AIDMK. So therefore, I think, see, what is politics? Politics is art of the possible, and that is why the Congress wants to put its strength where it can get find some kind of traction. You can go on criticizing, that's a different thing. But again, I'm saying it is electoral success that's going to define everything.
But sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to ask you both one quick question about Priyanka Gandhi. She is a general secretary of the party. She is in charge of the Congress party in Uttar Pradesh. Is she going to be is she going to be the magic wand that turns the state around? Sanjay and Sanjay, can you go first?
Yeah, I again share with you that I personally believe that Priyanka Gandhi should not enter the snake pit of Uttar Pradesh. It will damage her reputation completely because people will say that she didn't do well in Lok Sabha. And look, when she had the opportunity to, kind of resuscitate Uttar Pradesh, she came a cropper. So my advice actually internally has been that she should step back. In fact, my belief is that she should head Mahila Congress and become the big voice of women's issues in the country and become an influence across India, because women voters are a critical vote. And this is the kind of, outlier events the Congress needs to try. In Uttar Pradesh, if Priyanka continues to be the face of the party, trust me, it's going to be at an enormous personal cost to her own private equity, which is not good news for the party at all.
Well, there is this vacancy in the Mahila Congress because Sushmita Dev has
Yep.
left. But
Yep.
Rashid, what do you think? Do you think Priyanka could be the magic wand to revive the party in UP?
I think Priyanka's story is very fascinating. Jyoti here is a person who was, who perhaps for wrong reasons was suspended from Congress. And look at the kind of his body language, his choice of words. He becomes so kind of passionate about Congress when he's talking about Priyanka Gandhi, as if he's very much part of it. He's one who's who's a very active player of the Congress, and this is a real strength of the Gandhis, and this is the story of the Congress actually, that they have done it in such a deft manner that actually average congressman has not given up hope, and Sonia Gandhi knows this. So Priyanka Gandhi is there. She is a campaigner. She is a crisis manager. She motivates. She's a good listener. She does all those things. She prevails
She's
upon
very charismatic.
and she brought Sidhu in, and so therefore she is one person fighting on humanly. Of course, it's not possible. We know it. So UP failure is not something that will be held against this. Priyanka will remain Priyanka Gandhi. Key point again, I am saying, because it is electoral success that defines everything. In February 2022, when we will talk, we will be, gloating. Congress will be gloating over this fact that they won in Punjab, they won in Uttarakhand, and Uttar Pradesh. If by slice of luck, if Yogi is humbled, then you will see that Bengal like euphoria in the opposition rank. This is a Congress story. This is a opposition story.
But before that happens, Sanjay, you have the last word. They can only win in Punjab if Navjot Sidhu and Captain Amrinder Singh begin to get along and at least have like a common minimum program for the party. Now, if Priyanka Gandhi favors Mr. Sidhu and he and Captain Amrinder Singh are at each other's throats, then how do you think this is going to happen?
Yeah, I think the Congress was in pole position. It was the front runner in Punjab. And I'm saying it was because, let me tell you, if I'm a voter, I'm getting a terribly wrong and negative message from the party I want to vote for. So what you are looking at Punjab is an AAP and the Shrimoni Akali Dal and the BJP, which have not even been in the considered list of options, are suddenly going to be on the menu list. And since all of us keep saying a week is a long time in politics, let me tell you, things can change. And you might have a hung house. And a hung house means there is no guarantee that it will be a Congress-led hung house. So I think the Congress is really, at this point of time, got itself into a terrible jam. And the only way out of it is actually to still get people together and say, listen, stop washing your dirty linen in public. We got to hang in together. But the only way, Jyoti, this can happen is if the leadership talks to people together. We have a problem. We got to huddle up and talk together. You can't say I will talk to Rashid separately because he will bitch about me. Then you call me and I will castigate him. Why don't you call us face to face? Doodh ka doodh, pani ka pani.
Well, we hope that's going to happen, but at least we'll be watching this space. We don't know whether that's going to happen or not. But Sanjay Jha and Rashid Kidwai, thank you both so much for your time, for speaking to The Print.
Thank you.